The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but Alex Reed barely noticed. He sat hunched over the communication console at Luna Station, watching endless streams of cosmic background radiation paint patterns across his screens. Most nights were like this: quiet, routine, boring. The Deep Space Monitoring Station orbited Earth's moon, scanning the void for anything unusual. In 3 years of service, Alex had found exactly nothing worth reporting. Maya Torres walked into the communications bay, her lab coat wrinkled from another late night analyzing signal patterns. She was the station's only linguist, brought in when Earth's government decided they should be ready for first contact. Everyone joked that she had the easiest job in the solar system. "Another exciting evening?" Maya asked, pouring herself coffee from the pot that never seemed to empty. Alex stretched his arms above his head. "Same old cosmic noise. Sometimes I wonder why we even bother monitoring these frequencies. It's been 200 years since we started looking for alien signals, and we've found exactly 0. Maya settled into the chair beside him. "Maybe that's a good thing. Every science fiction movie suggests first contact doesn't go well for humanity." The console beeped. Alex glanced at it without much interest. Random signals triggered the alert system dozens of times each day, usually solar flares or radiation from distant stars. He reached for the acknowledgement button. The beep came again. Then again. "That's weird," Alex muttered. The signal strength was climbing steadily, not the usual pattern for cosmic background noise. Maya leaned forward. "What frequency?" "Multiple bands. This is coming from..." Alex checked his readings twice. "The Andromeda system. That's impossible. Nothing natural broadcasts across this many frequencies at once." The signal locked into a clear transmission. Maya's coffee cup slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. They both stared at the speakers as an alien voice filled the room. The words were incomprehensible, but the tone was unmistakable. Desperate, pleading, afraid. Maya grabbed her translation software and started recording everything. "Alert the command center," she whispered. "This is it. This is really happening." Alex's fingers moved across the console, sending priority alerts throughout Luna Station. Within minutes, the communications bay filled with technicians and officers. Station Commander Wells pushed through the crowd, her gray hair disheveled from sleep. "Report," she ordered. "Alien transmission from Andromeda," Alex said, his voice shaking slightly. "Multiple frequency bands, sophisticated encoding. This isn't random noise." Maya had been working frantically with her computers. "I'm getting partial translations. They're using mathematical concepts as a base language. Prime numbers, geometric sequences. Someone taught them how to communicate with species they'd never met." The alien voice continued for 27 minutes. When it finally stopped, the communications bay fell silent except for the hum of electronics. "What did they say?" Commander Wells asked. Maya looked pale. "They're dying. Their species is called the Nivari. They're under attack by something they call the Destroyers. 17 worlds have already fallen. They're broadcasting from their last stronghold, asking anyone who receives this message for help." "How far away?" Wells asked. Alex checked his calculations. "Andromeda system, 4th planet, about 2 months at maximum FTL speed." Commander Wells activated her communication link to Earth. "Priority Alpha transmission to Earth Command. We have first contact, and it's a distress call. Over the next several hours, Luna Station became the center of humanity's most important conversation. Earth's United Council debated through the night. Some argued they should ignore the message. Space was dangerous enough without volunteering for alien wars. Others worried about the implications of a species called Destroyers roaming the galaxy. Admiral Blake Harrison led the military briefing via secure transmission. His weathered face filled the main screen in the command center. The message mentioned 17 fallen worlds. That suggests a massive threat. If these destroyers are expanding outward, Earth could eventually be in their path. We know nothing about these aliens, argued Council Member Patricia Stone. This could be a trap. Or worse, we could be walking into a conflict we don't understand. Maya had been analyzing the transmission components. The Nivari included star charts and basic information about their technology. They're offering their entire scientific database in exchange for military assistance. Their knowledge of physics and engineering appears to be centuries ahead of ours. Admiral Harrison nodded. Advanced technology could give humanity a significant advantage in space. But more importantly, if there's truly a genocidal force operating in nearby systems, we need to assess the threat level. The debate continued for 6 hours. Representatives from Mars Colony and the asteroid mining stations joined the discussion. Humanity had never faced a decision like this. First contact combined with a request for military intervention. Finally, Admiral Harrison made his recommendation. We send an expeditionary force, not just to help these Nivari, but to gather intelligence about these destroyers. If they're expanding toward our region of space, we need to know what we're facing. The vote was close, but the decision was made. Humanity would respond to the alien distress call. Admiral Harrison began issuing orders immediately. I want our best ships and crews. The battlecruiser Defiance will lead the mission under Captain Sam Rodriguez, full military complement plus scientific and diplomatic teams. Maya found herself assigned to the expedition as head linguist and cultural advisor. Alex volunteered for the communications team. Within 48 hours, they were aboard shuttles heading for the military spaceport on Luna's far side. The Defiance was impressive. 300 meters of armor plating and weapons systems, designed to protect humanity's expanding territory from pirates and hostile mining corporations. Captain Rodriguez met the civilian team personally. I won't lie to you, he said during their first briefing. We're flying into a war zone to help aliens we've never met fight enemies we know nothing about. This mission could go wrong in 1,000 different ways. Maya looked around the briefing room at the faces of soldiers, scientists, and diplomats. But if we don't try to help, we might face these destroyers alone someday. Captain Rodriguez nodded grimly. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. The fleet launched 3 days later. 4 destroyers, 2 cruisers, and the Defiance, carrying humanity's first response to an alien cry for help. As Earth fell away behind them, Maya wondered what they would find at their destination. The Nivari had painted a picture of horror, but humanity was about to discover that sometimes the galaxy's monsters met their match in the creatures from a small blue world that refused to ignore the screams of the innocent. Space around the planet's sanctuary looked like a graveyard. Twisted metal debris drifted in slow orbits, pieces of what had once been defensive stations and civilian ships. The human fleet dropped out of FTL drive at the edge of the system, sensors, immediately picking up the massive battle taking place near the 4th planet. Captain Rodriguez stood in the tactical center of the Defiance, watching his screens fill with data. Report, he ordered. Lieutenant Tom Baker worked frantically at his console. Massive engagement in progress. I count over 300 alien vessels attacking the planet. The defending ships appear to be losing badly. Through the main view screen, they could see the attackers. The ships were unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. They looked like living crystals, their hulls shifting and flowing as if made of liquid glass. Energy beams lanced out from the crystal ships, striking the smaller defender vessels with devastating effect. Those must be the destroyers, Maya said quietly. She had spent the entire 2-month journey studying the Nivari language and culture. The defending ships matched the technical specifications the Nivari sent us. Ambassador Lisa Wong joined them in the tactical center. She was Earth's most experienced diplomat, chosen to handle humanity's first alien contact. Can we communicate with the Nivari fleet? Already trying, Alex replied from his communication station. I'm broadcasting on the frequencies they used in their distress call. A response came almost immediately. The alien voice was different from the recorded message, but Maya's translation software had improved during the journey. "They're acknowledging our signal. Someone named Defense Coordinator Taller wants to speak with our commander." The main screen flickered and displayed an alien face. The Navari was tall and graceful, with pale, translucent skin and 4 arms. Large, dark eyes conveyed exhaustion and hope in equal measure. "Human vessels," the alien said in halting English. "You came. We did not believe anyone would answer our call." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. "I am Captain Sam Rodriguez of the Earthship Defiance. We received your distress signal and came to offer assistance." Taller's image wavered as explosions erupted in the background. "The destroyers broke through our outer defenses 3 days ago. We have perhaps 6 hours before our last shield generators fail. 3 billion Navari refugees are trapped on the surface." "What can you tell us about these destroyers?" Rodriguez asked. "They consume everything. Every world they conquer is stripped of all biological matter. They take our people, our animals, our plants, everything living. Nothing survives. Their harvest." Maya felt sick. "How many worlds have they taken?" 17 in the past year. Entire civilizations. Gone. Billions of lives. Taller paused as another explosion shook his command center. "They adapt to our weapons. Energy shields become useless after the first few attacks. They learn and counter everything we try." Rodriguez turned to his tactical officer. "Assessment of enemy forces." Lieutenant Baker had been studying the sensor readings. "Their ships appear to be energy-based life forms, crystalline structure, but organic components. They're absorbing the Navari energy weapons and using that power to regenerate damage." Recommendations. "Kinetic weapons might be more effective. Our railguns and missile systems use completely different principles than Navari energy weapons." Rodriguez made his decision. "All ships combat formation. We're going to give these destroyer bastards a taste of human firepower." The battle that followed shocked both sides. Human weapons proved far more effective against the destroyers than anything the Navari had tried. Railgun slugs punched through crystal hulls, and nuclear missiles created devastating explosions that the aliens couldn't absorb, but the destroyers adapted quickly. Within an hour, they had modified their hulls to deflect kinetic impacts and developed countermeasures for human missiles. Worse, their numbers seemed endless. For every destroyer ship the humans destroyed, 2 more appeared from deeper in the system. Commander Rick Davis ran intelligence analysis from the Defiance's computer center. His team had been studying captured debris and communication intercepts. What they found was terrifying. "Captain," Davis reported, "these Arn destroyers aren't just raiders. They're a harvesting fleet. They strip planets completely clean and use the biological matter to create more ships. They're literally growing their fleet using the populations they conquer." "How many ships do they have?" "Based on our sensor data, at least 2,000 in this system alone. And Captain, they're not just attacking randomly. They have a planned expansion route. After they finish here, their next target appears to be the Kepler system." Rodriguez felt cold. "How close is that to Earth?" "About 3 months' travel time from our outer colonies. The tactical situation grew worse by the hour. Human weapons were effective, but they were vastly outnumbered. The Navari evacuation ships were too slow and too few. Millions would die before they could escape. Ambassador Wong managed to get aboard a Navari ship to meet their leaders in person. Prime Scholar Yilin greeted her in what had once been a beautiful city, now converted into a massive refugee center. The ancient Navari moved slowly, his 4 arms trembling with exhaustion. "Your people fight bravely," Yilin said, "but I fear courage is not enough against such numbers." Wong walked through the refugee camps, seeing thousands of Navari families huddled together. Children clung to their parents while adults tried to remain calm despite the terror in their eyes. "Tell me about your people," Help me understand what we're trying to save. We are scholars and artists, Yilin replied. For 3,000 years, we have devoted ourselves to learning and beauty. We explore the galaxy not to conquer, but to understand. We trade knowledge, not weapons. You never had to fight before? Never like this. We resolve disputes through discussion and compromise. The concept of total warfare is alien to us. Yilin gestured toward the sky, where explosions marked another battle. Your people seem to understand violence in ways we cannot comprehend. Wong nodded grimly. Humanity has spent most of its history at war. We've fought over resources, territory, religion, politics. We know conflict. Back on the Defiance, Captain Rodriguez received a priority message from Admiral Harrison on Earth. The Admiral's face was grim. Sam, I'm sending reinforcements, but they won't arrive for 6 weeks. Earth Command has authorized you to use any methods necessary to buy time for the Navari evacuation. Any methods, sir? The Council has reviewed the intelligence about these destroyers. If they're heading toward human space, this isn't just a rescue mission anymore. It's the first battle in a war for survival. Use every weapon we have. Rodriguez. Understood. The gloves were coming off. Acknowledged, Admiral. We'll hold the line. As the transmission ended, Rodriguez looked around his bridge crew. These were military professionals who had spent their careers preparing for corporate conflicts and pirate raids. Now they faced an enemy that made those threats look trivial. All ships, he announced over the fleet communication system, we're changing tactics. The Navari have been fighting a defensive war, trying to minimize casualties and preserve their civilization. We're going to show these destroyers what human warfare looks like. The real battle was about to begin. The human destroyer Phoenix died in a ball of crystalline fire, taking 200 crew members with it. Captain Rodriguez watched the explosion from the Defiance's bridge, his jaw clenched tight. They had been fighting for 18 hours straight, and the destroyers kept coming. That's our second ship lost, reported Lieutenant Baker. The enemy is adapting faster than we can adjust our tactics. Rodriguez turned to his communications officer. Get me a direct line to all ship commanders. Within minutes, the faces of his remaining captains filled the tactical display. They all looked exhausted and grim. Captain Susan Wells of the destroyer Lightning had a bandage wrapped around her head. Commander Mike Torres of the cruiser Thunderbolt was coordinating damage control while talking. Listen carefully, Rodriguez said. Standard military engagement isn't working. These things learn too fast and they have unlimited numbers. We need to change the rules of this fight. What do you suggest? Captain Wells asked. Rodriguez had been thinking about this for hours. We stop fighting fair. The Navari have been conducting warfare like a sporting match, trying to minimize casualties and preserve infrastructure. That's not how humans fight, when survival is at stake. Commander Emma Foster's face appeared on screen from the cruiser Vengeance. She had fought in the brutal corporate wars that had nearly destroyed Mars Colony. You're talking about total warfare. Exactly. We weaponize everything. Cargo ships become missile platforms. Mining equipment becomes orbital bombardment systems. We turn their own technology against them. Captain Wells looked uncomfortable. Captain, the Navari won't understand. They've never seen warfare like this. Then it's time they learned, Rodriguez replied coldly. Because if we don't win here, these destroyers will eventually reach Earth, and I refuse to let that happen. The transformation began immediately. Human engineering crews swarmed over Navari civilian ships, installing weapons systems and armor plating. Cargo haulers were loaded with kinetic penetrators and nuclear warheads. Even medical transports received defensive turrets. Dr. Ben Clark worked around the clock in the Defiance's science lab, studying captured destroyer fragments. What he found changed everything. Captain, he announced during the next briefing, these aren't pure energy beings. They're biomechanical hybrids. The crystalline structure is artificial, but there are organic cores inside each ship. Can we exploit that? Absolutely. I'm developing a biological agent that targets their organic components. But Captain, this is essentially a plague. Once released, it will kill every destroyer it encounters. Ambassador Wong looked horrified. You're talking about genocide. Dr. Clark met her gaze steadily. They've committed genocide against 17 civilizations. How is this different? We're supposed to be better than that. Captain Rodriguez made the decision. Doctor, how long to mass-produce your biological weapon? 48 hours with Navari manufacturing assistance? Do it. Meanwhile, Commander Foster had been working with Navari military leaders to establish ground defenses. The elegant aliens watched in amazement and growing horror as humans turned their peaceful cities into fortress bunkers. You fortify everything, observed Defense Coordinator Talar. Even civilian areas become weapons. Foster was installing explosive charges in a refugee center's support columns. If the destroyers break through our space defenses, they'll try to harvest your population centers. These charges will deny them that victory. You would destroy our own people rather than let the enemy take them? Yes. Foster's answer was immediate and certain. Sometimes death is better than the alternative. Talar struggled to understand this human concept. The Navari had always believed that any life was precious, that any survival was better than death. The humans seemed to have categories of death that were acceptable and others that were not. Prime Scholar Yilin watched human engineers convert his people's art galleries into ammunition factories. Are all human civilizations like this? He asked Ambassador Wong. We've had to be, Wong replied sadly. Earth's history is full of species and civilizations that refuse to fight for their survival. They're all extinct now. But at what cost? Look what you're becoming. Look what you're turning us into. Wong watched a group of young Navari learning to assemble explosive devices under the instruction of human marines. Sometimes civilization is a luxury we can't afford. The biological weapon was ready in 36 hours. Dr. Clark had worked with Navari biochemists to create a pathogen that would specifically target the organic cores of destroyer ships. It would spread through their communication networks and life support systems, killing the biological components while leaving the crystalline structure intact. This will work, Dr. Clark announced. But once we release it, there's no controlling. It's spread. Every destroyer ship in the system will be infected within hours. Captain Rodriguez looked around the room at his officers and the Navari leaders. Any objections? Prime Scholar Yilin spoke carefully. In 3,000 years of Navari civilization, we have never deliberately created a weapon designed to exterminate an entire species. In 300 years of human civilization, Rodriguez replied, we've created dozens of them. It's kept us alive. The attack began at dawn. Human ships launched modified missiles containing the biological agent directly into the heart of the destroyer fleet. The aliens didn't recognize the threat until it was too late. The effect was devastating. Within 4 hours, destroyer ships began falling out of formation as their organic components died. The crystalline hulls continued to function for a short time, but without their biological cores, the ships became helpless. But the humans didn't stop there. As destroyer ships drifted dead in space, human boarding parties captured them and reverse-engineered their technology. Within days, human ships were equipped with crystal armor and energy absorption systems. You're not just defeating them, Talar observed. You're stealing their capabilities. Commander Foster nodded. That's how humans fight. We adapt, we learn, and we take everything useful from our enemies. What happens to the survivors? What survivors? The systematic destruction of the destroyer fleet took 6 days. The humans tracked down every ship, every fragment, every piece of technology. They left nothing that could regenerate or rebuild. Ambassador Wong tried to protest the completeness of the destruction. Captain, we've won. There's no need to hunt. Down every last remnant. Yes, there is, Rodriguez replied firmly. These things destroyed 17 civilizations. They were planning to harvest Earth's colonies. I will not leave any possibility that they could return. The final destroyer stronghold was a massive ship hidden behind Sanctuary's largest moon. Instead of attacking it directly, the humans did something that shocked the Nivari even more. They redirected several asteroids to collide with the ship, turning the entire area into a debris field of molten rock and metal. "You destroyed everything," Prime Scholar Yelan said quietly. "There's nothing left to study, nothing to learn from." "Good," Captain Rodriguez replied. "Some knowledge is too dangerous to preserve." As the last explosions faded, the human fleet regrouped around Sanctuary. The destroyer threat was eliminated, but the Nivari looked at their rescuers with a mixture of gratitude and fear. "You saved us," Talar said during the final conference. "But what have we invited into our galaxy?" Rodriguez considered the question seriously. "You've invited a species that refuses to let innocent people die when we have the power to prevent it. But you've also invited a species that will do anything necessary to protect what we care about." "And what do you care about?" "Life. Freedom. The right of peaceful species to exist without fear." Rodriguez paused. "And we'll kill anyone who threatens those things." The message had been sent. News of humanity's victory would spread throughout the galaxy. Some species would welcome Earth's protection, others would fear it. But one thing was certain. The galaxy now knew that humanity fought wars to win them, completely and permanently. 3 weeks after the victory at Sanctuary, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. A massive destroyer fleet was approaching from deep space, at least 5,000 ships strong, the force that had attacked. Sanctuary was just a scouting expedition. Admiral Blake Harrison arrived with the full Terran expeditionary fleet just hours before the enemy reached sensor range. His flagship, the experimental dreadnought Retribution, dwarfed every other ship in the system. Maya watched from the Defiance's observation deck as the massive vessel took position at the center of the human formation. "That's the biggest warship humanity has ever built," Alex said, joining her at the viewport. "Took them 15 years to design and construct." The Admiral's face appeared on screens throughout the fleet. Harrison looked older than his 60 years, his hair completely gray and deep lines around his eyes. He had fought in every major conflict of the past 3 decades. "All ships, this is Admiral Harrison. Earth Command has authorized unrestricted warfare protocols. We are no longer bound by conventional rules of engagement. Our mission is simple: eliminate the destroyer threat completely and permanently." Captain Rodriguez met with the Admiral aboard the Retribution. The Dreadnought's corridors were filled with equipment Maya had never seen before. Weapons that had been theoretical when she left Earth were now operational and loaded. "What's our tactical situation?" Harrison asked. 5,000 enemy ships incoming," Rodriguez reported. "But we have advantages they don't expect. We've reverse-engineered their technology and improved Dr. Clark's biological weapon. More importantly, we've learned how they think." "Explain." Commander Rick Davis pulled up tactical displays. "The destroyers fight like a swarm organism. Individual ships aren't independent units. They're parts of a larger intelligence. Their strength comes from coordination and numbers. Their weakness? Cut off their communication network and they become confused. Disrupt their central coordination, and the entire fleet becomes vulnerable." Admiral Harrison studied the sensor readings. "How do we disrupt something that large?" Dr. Clark joined the briefing via hologram from his laboratory. "I've been working on that problem. The biological agent we used before targets their organic components. But I've developed something new, a quantum virus that attacks their communication systems directly." "How does it work?" "It spreads through their quantum entanglement network, the same system they use for faster-than-light communication. Once infected, their ships can't coordinate with each other. They become individual targets instead of a unified force." Harrison nodded approvingly. "Deployment method?" We need to get close enough to inject the virus directly into their command ship. That means penetrating their formation and surviving long enough to make contact. Colonel Anna Price had been listening from the corner of the briefing room. She commanded the fleet's Marine contingent and had spent the past weeks training with Navari volunteers. "I'll take a strike team. Get us close enough and we'll plant your virus right in their brain." The Admiral made his decision. "Approved, but..." "Colonel, this is a one-way mission. You won't be coming back." "Understood, sir. Neither will they." The battle plan was unlike anything in human military history. Instead of trying to defeat the destroyer fleet through conventional engagement, they would turn the enemy's own coordination against them. Phase 1 began when the destroyer fleet entered the system. The humans appeared to retreat, falling back toward Sanctuary's inner planets. The aliens followed, believing they were pursuing a defeated enemy. "They're taking the bait," reported Lieutenant Baker. "Enemy formation is tightening as they chase our ships." Admiral Harrison watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. "Perfect. They're moving into our trap." Hidden throughout the system, human ships waited in ambush. Mining vessels had been converted into mobile weapons platforms. Cargo haulers carried experimental weapons. Even civilian transports had been armed with whatever weapons could be installed. "All units, initiate Phase 2, Harrison ordered. The ambush was devastating. Human ships emerged from behind asteroids, inside gas clouds, and from the shadows of moons. They struck the destroyer formation from every direction simultaneously, but this wasn't the real attack. While the aliens fought the ambush, Colonel Price led her strike team directly toward the enemy command ship. Her Marines flew modified shuttles equipped with stealth technology and powered by captured destroyer engines. "Approaching the target," Price reported over the communication channel. "Enemy command ship is at the center of their formation, just like intelligence predicted." The command ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of any human vessel. Its crystalline hull pulsed with energy as it coordinated the movements of thousands of other ships. "I'm reading massive quantum activity," reported the team's technical specialist, Sergeant Bill Cross. "This thing is processing communication from their entire fleet." Price's shuttle docked with the enemy ship using magnetic clamps. Her Marines cut through the hull with plasma torches, fighting their way into the alien vessel's interior. The inside of the destroyer ship was like nothing humans had ever seen. Living crystal formations covered every surface, pulsing with bioluminescent light. The organic components Dr. Clark had identified were visible as dark masses embedded within the crystal structure. "Planting the virus now," Sergeant Cross announced. He attached Dr. Clark's device directly to what appeared to be the ship's central nervous system. The effect was immediate and terrifying. The quantum virus spread through the destroyer communication network faster than light itself. Within minutes, every ship in the enemy fleet began showing signs of confusion and disorientation. "It's working," reported Captain Rodriguez from the Defiance. "Enemy coordination is breaking down. Individual ships are beginning to act independently." Admiral Harrison seized the moment. "All ships, general attack. Target individual vessels. Don't let them regroup." The battle that followed was a massacre. Without their coordination advantage, individual destroyer ships were vulnerable to human tactics. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had superior strategy and ruthless efficiency. The human fleet didn't just destroy enemy ships, they captured them. Boarding parties seized destroyer vessels and turned their weapons against their former allies. Within hours, captured alien ships were fighting alongside human forces. Maya watched from the Defiance as the tide of battle turned completely. "They're not adapting," she observed. "Why aren't they learning like before?" Dr. Clark's voice crackled over the communication system from his laboratory. "The virus didn't just disrupt their coordination. It damaged their ability to process new information. They can't adapt because they can't think collectively anymore." The systematic destruction of the destroyer fleet took 12 hours. Admiral Harrison's forces pursued fleeing enemy ships throughout the system, hunting down every last vessel. No quarter was given, no prisoners were taken. But the humans discovered something even more disturbing. Long-range sensors revealed the source of the destroyer fleet, a massive ship construction facility hidden in the system's outer asteroid belt, using captured biological matter to grow new vessels. That's where they've been building their ships, Commander Davis reported. They're using the populations of conquered worlds as raw material. Admiral Harrison's response was immediate and final. Destroy it! Completely! The orbital bombardment of the destroyer shipyard lasted 6 hours. Human ships fired every weapon they possessed, reducing the facility to expanding clouds of plasma and debris. Billions of tons of organic matter, the remains of entire civilizations, were finally released from their horrific bondage. Prime Scholar Yelan watched the destruction from Sanctuary's surface. "You're not just defeating them," he said to Ambassador Wong. "You're erasing them from existence." "Good," Wong replied simply. "Some things don't deserve to exist." When the battle ended, space around Sanctuary was filled with drifting wreckage and the hulks of defeated destroyer ships. The human fleet had lost only 3 vessels, while completely eliminating an enemy force 20 times their size. But Admiral Harrison wasn't finished. Intelligence analysis of captured destroyer data cores revealed the locations of other enemy fleets and construction facilities throughout the galaxy. "Prepare for extended operations," Harrison announced to his fleet commanders. "We're going to track down every last destroyer stronghold and eliminate them all." Captain Rodriguez looked at the star charts showing dozens of enemy positions. "Sir, that could take years." "Then it takes years," Harrison replied grimly. "We're not stopping until this threat is completely eliminated. The galaxy will never again face the horror these things represent." The message was clear to everyone who heard it. Humanity had not just won a battle, they had declared a war of extermination, and they intended to fight it until the very last destroyer was nothing but space dust. 8 months had passed since the battle at Sanctuary. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the final destroyer stronghold burn. The planet below had once been a beautiful world covered in oceans and forests. Now it was a sphere of molten glass, glowing red against the darkness of space. "Orbital bombardment complete," reported Lieutenant Baker. "No signs of remaining life or technology." Rodriguez nodded without emotion. This was the 43rd world they had sterilized in their hunt for destroyer remnants. Each time they found the same thing: massive biological processing facilities, where entire populations had been liquefied and converted into ship components. "Any word from the other task forces?" Rodriguez asked. "Admiral Harrison reports the last construction facility in the Rigel system has been destroyed. Captain Wells finished operations in the Vega sector yesterday. That's it, Captain. We've eliminated every known destroyer presence in the galaxy." The communication screen activated, showing Admiral Harrison's face. The man looked exhausted, his hair now completely white, despite being only 62 years old. "All ships. This is Admiral Harrison. Operation Extermination is complete. The destroyer threat has been eliminated." A cheer went up from the bridge crew, but Rodriguez felt no joy. They had accomplished their mission, but the cost had been enormous. Not in human lives, they had lost fewer than 10,000 personnel during the entire campaign. The cost had been measured in different terms. Maya joined him at the observation window. She had spent the past months documenting their encounters with dozens of alien species. Some had welcomed human intervention. Others had fled in terror when the Earth ships arrived in their systems. "The Rigel Confederation sent another diplomatic protest," she reported. "They're demanding that we stop hunting destroyers in their territory." "Any destroyers left in their territory?" "None. We eliminated the last facility there 6 weeks ago." Rodriguez sighed. "Add their complaint to the file with all the others." The transformation of humanity's reputation throughout the galaxy had been swift and complete. When news of the destroyer genocide spread, some species celebrated their liberation from the ancient threat. Others began to fear that Earth's military might would eventually be turned against them. Ambassador Wong had spent months trying to calm these fears, establishing diplomatic relations with dozens of alien civilizations. Her reports painted a complex picture of galactic politics. The Centauri Alliance wants to establish a formal military partnership, Wong reported during their weekly briefing. They're offering 3-star systems in exchange for protection guarantees. And the others? The Andromedan Trade Federation has banned human ships from their space. They claim we're too dangerous to be allowed free movement. The Crystal Singers have gone completely silent. Their entire civilization has retreated to their core worlds. Prime Scholar Yilin attended these briefings as the representative of the Navari government. His people had been the first to witness humanity's capacity for total warfare, and their perspective was unique. Many species are asking the same question, Yilin said quietly. What happens when humanity decides another civilization is a threat? Rodriguez met his gaze steadily. We eliminate threats to innocent life. That's what we've always done. But who decides what constitutes a threat? The destroyers were clearly genocidal. But what about species that are simply territorial or aggressive? Rodriguez considered the question carefully. It was one that had kept him awake for weeks. We don't want to rule the galaxy, Yilin. We never asked for this responsibility. But you have it now, whether you wanted it or not. Dr. Clark had returned to Earth 3 months earlier, but his final report still haunted the fleet. The biological weapons he had created were too effective, too easily manufactured. Any species with basic genetic engineering could now produce weapons capable of eliminating entire civilizations. We've opened a door that can't be closed, Wong observed. Every species in the galaxy now knows that total extinction is possible, with the right weapons. The journey back to Sanctuary took 2 weeks. The Navari had spent the past months rebuilding their civilization with human assistance. Their cities now combined traditional Navari architecture with human defensive systems. Beautiful crystal spires were surrounded by shield generators and weapon emplacements. Taylor met them at the orbital station, his 4 arms spread in the Navari gesture of welcome. But his large eyes showed the strain of the past year. Welcome back, Captain Rodriguez. The galaxy is very different than when you first arrived. Different how? 3 species have already developed biological weapons based on Dr. Clark's research. The hegemony of worlds is demanding that all military technology be shared equally among member civilizations. And there are rumors that some species are forming alliances specifically to counter human influence. Rodriguez felt a familiar weight settle on his shoulders. Are they threats? That's the question, isn't it? When does legitimate self-defense become threatening to others? They toured the rebuilt Navari cities together. Children played in parks protected by energy barriers. Schools taught both traditional Navari philosophy and human military tactics. The integration was remarkable, but unsettling. You've changed us, Yilin admitted as they walked through a memorial to the victims of the destroyer attacks. Before humanity arrived, the concept of total warfare was foreign to us. Now our children learn about weapons and tactics alongside art and literature. Was that wrong? Rodriguez asked. I don't know. We're alive because of it. But we're not the same people you saved. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Admiral Harrison. His face appeared on a portable screen, grave and tired. Captain, we have a situation developing in the Outer Rim. The hegemony of worlds has issued an ultimatum. They want humanity to surrender all destroyer technology and submit to galactic oversight of our military operations. Our response. The Earth Council is meeting now, but the preliminary decision is clear. We refuse. Rodriguez felt his stomach tighten. Are they backing up their ultimatum with force? 1,500 ships from 12 different species, massing at the edge of our patrol zone. They're calling it a peace enforcement operation. The bitter irony wasn't lost on anyone. Less than a year after humanity had saved the galaxy from genocide, they were facing a coalition of the very species they had protected. "What are your orders, Admiral?" Harrison's expression became grim. "The same as always, Captain. Protect innocent life and eliminate threats to human civilization. If they want to fight the people who destroyed the destroyers, they're welcome to try." The transmission ended, leaving Rodriguez staring at the memorial wall. Thousands of Nivari names were carved into crystal, victims of the destroyer harvest. Now it seemed humanity might be forced to add more names to walls of their own. Maya approached him cautiously. "Captain, there has to be another solution. Diplomacy, negotiation, something. Tell that to the 1,500 ships pointing weapons at Earth's colonies." Ambassador Wong had been monitoring galactic communications. "The coalition is claiming they're acting to prevent human expansion and militarism. They say they're protecting smaller species from Earth's influence." "And what do the smaller species say?" "Most of them are staying neutral. But, Captain, some of the species in that coalition were targets of destroyer attacks. We saved them, and now they're joining forces against us." Rodriguez walked to the edge of the memorial platform, looking out over the rebuilt Nivari city. Lights were coming on as evening approached, families gathering for their evening meals, children playing in the streets. All of it was possible because humanity had been willing to fight a war of extermination. "They're afraid of us," he said finally, "and maybe they should be." Taller joined him at the platform's edge. "What will you do?" "What we've always done. Protect the people we care about and eliminate threats to their safety." "Even if those threats are former allies?" Rodriguez turned to face the Nivari commander. Yilin asked who decides what constitutes a threat. The answer is simple. We do. Humanity decides what we consider threatening, and we act accordingly. And if you're wrong, then we live with the consequences. But if we're right and we do nothing, everyone dies. 2 days later, the human fleet departed Sanctuary for the last time. The Nivari had chosen to remain neutral in the coming conflict, but they offered their star system as a haven for human civilians if needed. As the Defiance jumped to FTL speed, Rodriguez composed his final report to Earth Command. The galaxy had changed completely in less than a year. The ancient threat of the destroyers was gone, but new threats were emerging to fill the vacuum. "End log," he said to the computer. "Personal note, we came to save aliens from monsters and discovered we might be the monsters they need saving from. But monsters or heroes, we're still human, and humans protect what matters to them, regardless of what the galaxy thinks about it." The view screen showed stars streaking past as they headed toward the outer rim, toward another battle, toward an uncertain future. Behind them, the galaxy struggled to understand what humanity had become. Ahead of them waited species that had decided Earth was too dangerous to be allowed free action. Captain Rodriguez settled back in his command chair and prepared for humanity's next war. They had answered an alien distress call and unleashed Earth's fury upon the galaxy. Now they would discover whether that fury could protect them from the consequences of their own success. The stars offered no answers, only the promise of more battles to come.